I'm going to say something that I think you already know, but it's worth mentioning either way because, well, I have to remind myself of it every single day. And that's this: lust has consequences. Like I said, you probably already know that. I think those are very evident just in all of our lives. And even in my life, I've seen it in so many places. I mean, there is not a single part of my life that wasn't affected by lust when I was in the depths of my sin. There wasn't a single day or single moment that went by where I wasn't controlled by it, where I wasn't consumed by it. Like that's like honestly that's the best word to describe it. It kind of feels like you're in a house that's on fire. I hope that didn't trigger anyone. I don't know if you've ever been in a house fire, but it's a terrible thing, right? It's completely consumed. Everything around you is on fire. You can't touch anything or you will get burned in a way that you couldn't even describe. Maybe a door is locked or there's a worse fire out in the hallway and it just feels like you're trapped. It is the most debilitating feeling in the world. It's the most helpless feeling in the world. And the consequences go past that. I mean, I think about the way that I was able to operate as a human being. I felt like I couldn't trust other people because of the way that I couldn't trust myself. Lust poured into so many other areas. It made me not be able to focus fully on certain things. I couldn't do well in school the way that I wanted to. I couldn't do well in my job the way that I wanted to. I'd be sitting in meetings or in class, and my mind would be on other things. These consequences come through in areas that really affect our lives. And then past that, there's the guilt and the shame. There's the weight of knowing that you're not doing what you should do. And then maybe even in past that, in a much worse and real way, maybe you have actual, true consequences. Maybe you did something terrible to another person. Maybe you messed up with your girlfriend. Maybe you got someone pregnant. Maybe you did something that brought you to a place where now you have to talk with law enforcement. Like lust can lead to terrible things, and you may think, whoa, I'm not there. I'm not that bad. That's not what we're dealing with here. I need you to understand this. This is not a linear journey of, okay, you started into lust and now you're here. And it will always be like this. No. Lust is designed. The enemy has used lust to pull us further. So if you're in lust, you're not just down to this level of depravity and you stay there for your entire journey. No, it is a downward spiral. You are going down and down and down. And I think you know that. If you take a genuine inventory of the last 10 times that you failed, what was the trajectory? It got worse, didn't it? I know for me, that's how it would always happen. I would always be like, oh, I do this. This is my sin. This is my vice. This is the thing that I lust after, It's not that big of a deal. And then the more that I would fall into it and the longer that I dealt with it, the worse things got, and things that I had put boundaries up for, I'll never do that. I'll never look at that. These things where I'd be like, oh no, these are my hard boundaries and those will never move. Well, they moved, they changed. And the further that they move and the further that they change, the worse the consequences can get. And I don't want you to get there. I was lucky enough to stop before I got into any real, true, like actual worldly consequences, but not before I was hit with these other consequences, these consequences that are internal. And there's a really good quote that I love. It's from one of my favorite movies. If you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. Maybe not the best one for this journey. I can't even remember if there's bad scenes in it because it's been a while since I've watched it. But it opens. The opening scene, I believe, starts with Mel Gibson, the legend, as a patriot. That's what the movie's called, in the Revolutionary War. And the quote says this: "I have long feared that my sins would return to visit me, and the cost is more than I can bear." I remember the first time I heard that, it really hit me. I almost had to pause the movie because I was thinking about how that related to my life. Like, man, I have done some terrible things. I really have. I've lived in this sin for so long, and it's hard to believe in a just God and to believe in justice in general, and to not think that you deserve some sort of consequence, right? And so the first time I heard that, I really thought, like, man, are my sins going to return to visit me one day? How is that going to manifest? How are they going to return to visit me? And is the cost going to be more than I can bear? We'll get into that a little bit later, in terms of the right way to think about those sorts of things. But I think that's a genuine thought to bring up. And it's a great quote. I encourage you to spend some time thinking about that, because nothing is without consequence, especially lust. And these things maybe bring you to a place of realizing, man, I am I am depraved. I am broken. I am a terrible person. I do deserve to die a terrible death and to suffer indescribable things because I have done terrible things. I have been so wrong that I deserve as terrible of a life as possible. Well, if you're in that place, I have two things to say to you, but before I get into those two things, I just want to say I've been there too. And that is a very difficult place to be in. It's a very conflicted place. It's a heavy place. That stuff weighs on you, man. There would be days where I would lay in bed and just couldn't even fall asleep at night because the weight of my sin would just be resting so heavy on my chest. But I want to say, if you are there, or even if you're not there, there are two facts, and here they are. No matter the extremity that you're feeling those feelings, the first one is, if you are feeling all that, if you are feeling the weight of your sin, if you are feeling that guilt and that shame, and that you deserve all these terrible things because you have been terrible, then you're in the right place. Genuinely, if you didn't feel those things, then I might start to question, like, okay, what brought you here? Like, are you truly wanting to get out of this? Is this actually something that you're serious about? Because those feelings show the first step in the gospel, which is acknowledging that you are broken. And so that's the good news, right? If you are thinking that, then you being here right now and where you are in your journey is you're in the right place, because that's the starting point, right? That is the place where everything can grow from, and you can get on to a solid foundation. But I also have bad news. And the bad news is you need to get all of those thoughts out of your mind right now. Now, that might sound a little bit like good news. Like, these are not good thoughts. You don't want to be thinking these thoughts. But in reality, at their core, self-pity, self-loathing, all of those feelings that you're feeling where you feel like, oh, I deserve to die a terrible death, all of that is just veiled self-righteousness. Like, it's actually you being incredibly arrogant, because it's putting everything on you. It's being like, oh, I'm so terrible, and oh, I'm so this, and I'm so this, and I'm so that. It's so I focused. It's me centered, and it's thinking about the wrong things. It's focusing on the wrong things, and it's actually self-righteousness. It's actually pride. And so you need to get all of that out of here right now, because none of that is going to bring you to a place of getting a good enough why to have victory. And that's what we're here to talk about, because those feelings bring you to of course, wanting to get out of it. Those feelings spur on, like, okay, I deserve all these terrible things, but I don't want these for myself. Obviously, the self-preservation comes in. You're like, I don't want these terrible things for myself, even though I deserve them. So what am I going to do about it? And they bring you to, like, okay, I want victory. Well, why do you want victory? If it's from those emotions, you want it because you're angry. You're angry at yourself. You're angry at the world. You're angry at your decisions. You're guilty. Maybe it's because you feel this weight of shame and guilt, and you're like, I need to get out of this. I can't deal with this weight any longer. I can't deal with this weight on my chest when I'm trying to fall asleep at night. Or maybe it's just a fear of consequences. Like, you're living in fear. Like, these terrible things are going to happen if I keep going down this path. I don't want to keep slipping further and further into this. I'm so afraid of what's going to happen. All of those and the many other things that come with that are terrible whys. And I know that personally, very personally, because that was my why for so long. The biggest why that I had for the longest time was a fear of consequences. And it was a fear that I instilled in myself because I was so sick and tired of falling into the sin. I just wanted to do something about it. And it was that pride. It was that self-righteousness that drove me to be like, okay, if I fail again, I'm going to force myself to go on a run. And this goes way back into my journey, my personal journey, is I hate running so much. Running is the worst. It's one of the worst things in the world. The whole experience sucks. And so I hate it, especially sprinting. And so the way that I would do it is I would make myself run a mile. I already hated that. And then at the very end, for the last 200 or so meters, I would force myself to sprint it as hard as I could, as fast as I could possibly sprint, and I would go all out. Usually, I would do it late at night, and I wouldn't let myself use AirPods or anything like that to listen to music. I would just force myself. I would literally be punishing myself, and that was my why. Is I would be sitting there with my phone out, ready to fail, ready to fall back into lust. And the only thing stopping me, and the only thing that was driving me to have victory or bringing me to want to have victory, was this fear of consequences. And you know what? It never worked. Not once. Not a single time did I have sustained victory because of that. Yeah, maybe I'd go a week. One time I even went a month because of it, because I hated doing it so much. I was so afraid of those consequences. But at the end of the day, every single time I would get to a point where I would realize, I want this more than I'm afraid of that. And I would fall right back into my sin. I would be right back in lust. And that's a perfect example of how my pride brought me to have a lust that and a fear of consequences, and brought me to have a why that didn't suffice, that didn't get me to where I needed to be. And it's a terrible thing. Honestly, you're having the wrong why is a terrible thing to deal with. I would not wish it upon anyone, because it gives you so much misguided direction. It makes you so confused. It actually brings you further into lust. Having that wrong why actually would drive me deeper and deeper into my sin. So that's why it is so important to have a proper why, a real, good, genuine reason for why you are pursuing freedom, why you are pursuing purity, and why you are avoiding all of that sexual immorality, all of that lust, all of that sin. Okay, so this brings us to one of my favorite stories. It's a historical story. As you can tell, I love history. I'm a big history buff. I love studying it and learning about it. And one of my favorite YouTube channels is Oversimplified. If you haven't watched them, I love it. Highly recommend. But they did a series on the Punic Wars. And in the Second Punic War, there's this really interesting story there's this huge war. It's between Carthage and Rome, and they're fighting this massive war, and they hate each other. It's gone on for decades. Literally, it's one of the wildest stories I think I've ever heard. It's genuinely insane, and it's how Rome was established as what it is today. But that's all besides the point. All of this came to the head in the Second Punic War. It was kind of like this final big battle. Rome had made it on to the African continent, which that's, maybe I should set that up. Carthage is in Africa. Rome started in Italy, in modern day Italy. And so Rome finally makes it. The armies make it to Africa, the continent of Africa. It's not the first time that they've been here, but they're facing off with the Carthaginians. And the Carthaginians have assembled this massive army, but most of the army is mercenaries. And specifically, there are some Iberians, there's some Gauls, there's all these other ethnic groups from Europe and from Africa. But one of the main ones is the Numidians, is what they're called. And there are these elite cavalry soldiers. And they were all lined up to fight, and Rome was ready to go. And right before the fight, the Carthaginians had lined up all their soldiers. The Numidians especially kind of saw the writing on the wall, and they realized, I don't think Carthage is going to win this battle. And so at that moment, they changed sides, and they turned and they fought for Rome instead. And it's one of the craziest stories. It actually ended, like, totally sealed the fate of Carthage and sealed the fate, honestly, of the Roman Empire. This all set up how powerful Rome was for the next 1,000 years or something crazy like that. But it's such a great story of how important a why is, if that makes sense. The Numidians were fighting for money. They were fighting for the highest bidder. They were fighting to be rich. And that is such a different mindset than the ethnic Carthaginians. Those people were there fighting because if they didn't, then they lost everything, including their life, including the people that they love, including their families, including their farms and their land and their homeland, including the idea of themselves, their nation. Everything about them is what they were fighting for. But the Numidians, all they were fighting for is money. And that is a terrible why. And that is why the Carthaginians ended up losing. Because the Numidians said, you know what? No amount of money is good to a dead man. You can pay me as much as you want, but if we're going to lose this battle, then it's not worth it to me. And this brings up a great quote that I love. This is from Nietzsche. He's, I believe, a Russian writer. He writes some crazy stuff, some dark stuff, honestly. But he has a really good quote that I want to share with you, and it goes like this. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. It doesn't matter how difficult your battle gets. There's going to be nights where you're struggling, man, where you are in the thick of it. You are just like going blow for blow with what it feels like is the enemy, what it feels like is all of your flesh. It literally feels like your mind is battling your entire body, and it feels like a losing battle. But if your why is strong enough, then it doesn't matter what the how you're enduring is. You can make it through. So I want to talk about what are some legitimate and valid whys. What are whys that can actually carry you through? What are whys that are worth fighting for, that are worth believing in, that are worth establishing right now at the beginning of your journey to get you into a life of freedom. And a little spoiler alert, there's 3 of them here, but the first 2 are really meaningless without the third one. But I think it's valid to talk about them because the third one is your core why. Spoiler alert, it's God. It's Jesus. That's what we are always talking about. But the other 2 are these kind of like auxiliary, like side things that when you're really struggling to get in the right mind space, things that you can remind yourself of to get you kick you into that extra gear and to get you back to a place to remember your core why. So let's get into them real quick. The first one is yourself. Now this is a tough one. For me, this is one of the most difficult ones to come to terms with because, I mean, let me ask you a question. When was the last time that you were able to confidently look yourself in the mirror? When was the last time that you were able to go to bed peacefully at night? When was the last time that you were just out and about and you were just at peace the whole time? You were never hit with a thought of guilt or shame or with a thought of lust and sexual impurity. When was the last time that you were confident in yourself? When was the last time that you weren't so overwhelmed with shame that you couldn't hold your head high and roll your shoulders back? When was the last time that you could sit in front of your parents or someone that you deeply respected and be confident in who you are? I genuinely had to ask myself those questions. And honestly, at the height of my journey, I couldn't give a good answer to that. I couldn't tell you the last time. I was so ashamed. I was so broken. Like who I was not who I wanted to be. And it was terrible. It was so unbelievably terrible. And you might be in that same place right now. And one of the things that I like to think about is, what would 8-year-old me think about how I am living right now? Right? That little kid with all those dreams and ambitions and goals and someone who wanted to do great things and to be someone great. That little guy, what would he think about how I'm living right now? Would he be proud of me? Would he be like, yes, that's who I wanted to be. That's who I was hoping to become. That's what I was hoping to make my life. Or would he be so appalled? Like, whoa, how could you do that? What have you done? Where are you trying to go in life? This isn't our plan. This isn't what I was hoping for. That little guy who had a pure take on the world, that didn't have a corruption of all of what the world has come, of what lust has done to you. What would he think of you? And then past that, and more importantly, honestly, what would you 10 years from now think of you? What would that guy look back? Would he be glad and grateful and proud of you for the decisions that you're making today? Or would it be like, man, that dude's an idiot. That guy sucks. That guy is making every decision that makes my life so much harder today. That guy set me back 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. The things that dude did back then are still affecting me today, are still making me not be able to be who I want to be today. Is that guy proud of you? These are important questions to ask yourself to get yourself into a mindset of who do you want to be? What do you want to do with your life? Now, this is one of those things that, again, this is not your core why, but it's an important thing to be able to, like I said, kick you into gear, because this is something that as young men we have to come to terms with, right? We can't, if you live your life seeking out your own pleasures and your own gratification, then what does your life look like 50 years from now, right? Because we all know this. It's investments require sacrifice now for a reward later. That is something that we think about with money, obviously, and it's important for us to think about that with actions now. Our actions today are the investments for our future. Who we are 10 years, 20 years, 50 years from now has a direct correlation to the decisions that you make right here, right now. And the decision in finance, there's this idea called time value of money, right? $1 invested now is worth a lot more than $1 invested 15 years from now. That is an idea with actions as well. Your actions today have a lot more bearing on your life than your actions in 20 years. Because the actions today are setting your trajectory of your life. Right now, this is your trajectory. But when you keep making dumb decisions, you keep letting yourself live in lust like you are, your trajectory goes like this, much quicker than it needs to. Much quicker than it needs to. And you start losing opportunity. You start losing the ability to do the things that you want to do. You start losing ambition, honestly. It numbs you to a lot of things. And it starts eating at your future. And so you're fighting for yourself and having a why that correlates to what you want your life to be like is important, because you need to be able to be proud of yourself. You need to be able to be confident in yourself. In order to be a successful man in this world, these are things that you can't live without. You can't live without a self-confidence, a self-esteem almost that isn't constantly eaten away at by an addiction, by lust, by bad things, by depravity. Because living in depravity only begets, man, there's that word again, only begets more depravity, only begets more destruction, only produces bad fruit in your life. But if you start making good decisions, and if you can remind yourself in those moments where you're tempted to make a bad decision, that a good decision today will bear fruit 10 to 20 to 50 years from now, then you can start to get into a place of victory. But again, that's not enough, because you might be in a moment where yeah, sure, that could kick you into a higher gear, but that's not going to be enough to get you across the finish line of purity. And that brings us to our second point. And this one is your family. Your current family, maybe your parents. If you're especially a young man, I know for me, this is the biggest one, is I really struggled at times to be able to look my parents in the eye, to be able to sit at the dinner table with them with confidence, without holding something back from them. It was hard to be honest with them about other things in my life, because this area I was just so wrong in that I even felt like I couldn't celebrate things. I even felt like I couldn't celebrate myself at times. I mean, I naturally don't like my birthday. I just don't like celebrating that sort of thing. But I honestly think part of that came from just a deep self-loathing, because I understood that I wasn't worthy of being celebrated, because I haven't acted in a way that's worthy of that, if that makes sense. But even past that, I mean, here's another personal example. My sister recently got married. And I can genuinely say it was the happiest day of my life to be at my sister's wedding. Like, just a picture perfect, unbelievable day. So grateful to have been a part of that. But I remember one of my most vivid memories from that day is I was one of the groomsmen for her now husband, and I was standing there with a perfect view of my sister, someone that I deeply love and respect, someone who I look up to more in this world than almost anyone. And I remember one of the only things that I could think after, being so happy for her and being so excited, I was just hit with this incredible weight of, what if that was me that was standing across from my wife? What if that was me that was at the altar about to make the biggest commitment, biggest worldly commitment of my life, to commit my everything to this person, to commit to love them with all that I am, to commit to love this woman in a way that I've never loved anything in my life? What would I be thinking? Could I make that commitment? And as I stood there, I was like, I don't think so. I don't know if I could, in all honesty, be totally vulnerable and be totally honest in saying I do in that moment. I through everything, like I am bringing my everything to you, because I wouldn't be, because I've lived so unhonorably. And I even think further than that, like, when I have kids one day, could I feel like a good father? Could I feel like I'm someone that is worthy to be raising kids in this world, to be guiding them along this journey of life, when I can't even get my own in shape? I can't even get my own house in order. Could I look my daughter in the eye one day and protect her and guide her and offer all of the support that a father should offer to their daughter? Could I do that when at the same time I'm looking at other women in this world, completely violating them? Would I be able to look at my son in the eye and instruct him in the ways of the Lord, and instruct him in the ways of being a man, when I am acting so childish in this area? These things weigh heavy, and it may sound dramatic, but I encourage you to think about these things, because the more that I think about them, the more it encourages me to get on the right path. But again, these things fail. These whys are good auxiliary ones. They're good because they're positive. The ones that I was talking about earlier, the whys that are not good enough, are all negative ones. They're all ones that are you're being spurred on because you're being chased by something. That's never good, right? Right? You'll run the hardest when you're pursuing something. When you're being chased by something, yeah, you'll run hard for maybe 100 meters or so, but then you'll probably trip and you'll stumble and you'll run out of gas. You can only run away from things for so long before they catch up to you. But if you're running to something, if you're pursuing it, if your eyes are on it and you can see it and you can chase it down, you're going to run so much longer because it's ahead of you. You think that you can get there because you can get there. This is the difference between the fear and the consequences and the anger and the guilt, those bad reasons for pursuing, and these good ones that aren't quite enough but are worth pursuing and are worth attacking and are worth going after and using as a why to store in your heart as a reminder in those moments when you're starting to fail. These are the things that have been helpful to me, at least. But the last one is hands down the most important. This is the why that you must build your foundation on. Because your family, yourself, your future, your goals, all of that are good things to pursue. Good whys to have in the piggy bank when you need it on a rainy day. But in your day-to-day and in your darkest moments where you really need a why, where you really need something to kick that engine on inside of you to be like, no, I'm fighting today. I am going to God today, is only God. That is only the reason. Jesus is only the reason. And it's not just the idea of Jesus, right? No, it's a love of Jesus. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's talk about why this is a good why, first of all. And the first one is because God commands it. I want to read a verse here. It's 1 Thessalonians 4:3. It says this: God's will is for you to be holy. So stay away from all sexual sin. I'm going to read it again because it's so short and so to the point, but it's so perfect for this. God's will is for you to be holy. So stay away from all sexual sin. It is so obvious. Almost every single book in the Bible talks about sexual sin at some point. And the entire message from every book about sexual sin is the exact same. Let there be none. It could not be more clear what God commands us to do in this area of our life. And why that matters is this is the God of the universe. This is the designer of the world, the designer of you and me, the designer of sex. If anyone knows how this is supposed to work, it's him. So when he tells us how to live our life, it's trustworthy. It's worth following. But saying a why is because God said so, yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah, that might be a hard thing. And in your darkest moments when lust is really speaking to you like, wait, why are we fighting for this again? Because that is, I mean, you know that well, probably. That does happen. I can't tell you how many times I've been laying in my bed like, wait, why am I fighting again? And to say, oh, because God says so. Sometimes that works. Sometimes that is power. But it's more than that, because it's not just that God said so. It's that he loves you, right? And that's the next point. He loves you and he has a plan for you. He tells you not to engage in sexual immorality because he has something better for you. I have another verse for you. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 9. It says, don't you realize that those who do wrong will not inherit the kingdom of God? Don't fool yourselves. Those who indulge in sexual sin or who worship idols or commit adultery or are male prostitutes or practice homosexuality, all of the sexual sins, those people will not inherit the kingdom of God. God has something for you. He's protecting you from bad things. We all know what the results of living in sexual impurity are, right? It's incredible guilt and shame. It's anxiety. It's fear. It's real world consequences. It is despair. It is more depravity. These are not new to us, right? We know these things well. We know them intimately, unfortunately. And God is trying to protect us from that. Like I said before, God is not a cosmic killjoy here, trying to keep you away from something good, something that feels good, something that you can enjoy. No, it is, sex, of course, is a good thing for you to enjoy, but at the right time, in the right context. That's not where you are right now. And when you take things out of the context of God's design, it only ends in bad things. So God commands you to do it, but he does it for a reason, and the reason is that he loves you. So what then is our reason for pursuing purity, for fighting for freedom, for pursuing Jesus? Well, it's out of love. That is our why, because we love Jesus. And that's a hard place to get to, I'll be honest. That might sound, the first time that I heard that, it really pissed me off, honestly. I was like, what does that even mean? You want me to love Jesus? Like, how is that a why? What is that even, like, that's just a church word. I feel like you just throw that out there and like, ooh, thoughts and prayers. Like, I don't know. What does that even mean? It is a real thing. And I want to read a verse here. It's John 15:10. It says this: when you obey my commandments, you remain in my love, just as I obey my Father's commandments and remain in his love. What does it mean to love Jesus? It's to obey his commandments. That's what the Bible says. And so, like I was talking about before, it's like, okay, but why is that a why? How does that help me? It's, well, if you believe that what Jesus did on the cross actually happened, and if you believe that God does actually love you, the only logical response to that is to love him back, is to understand that, oh, all of this is legit. Okay, then he is the most important thing in my life. Then he is the thing that I should love more than anything else in this life. He is the thing that I should fix my thoughts and my heart on, my everything on. Nothing is more worthy of him, right? We love things that are worthy of our time, that are worthy of our praise, that are worthy of our attention. And there's nothing more worthy than God. And so how then practically do we love God? We obey his commandments. And that's what all of this boils down to, is when you are dealing with lust and you're overwhelmed and you need a why, you need something to get you through the night. Your why is, well, I love Jesus more than I love myself. I love Jesus more than I love this lust. And the way that I show my love to Jesus, the way that that manifests in my life, the way that that comes about in the practical, real world is by obeying his commandments. And his commandment is to be holy, is to abstain from all sexual sin, is to stay away from all lust. One more verse for you. Romans 8:37-39. No, despite all these things, overwhelming victory is ours through Christ, who loved us. And I am convinced that nothing can ever separate us from God's love. Neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither our fears for today nor our worries about tomorrow, not even the powers of hell can separate us from God's love. No power in the sky above or in the earth below. Indeed, nothing in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is revealed in Christ Jesus our Lord. Like I said it in the beginning, God loves you. He truly does. He loves you more than you could ever comprehend. And if you believe that he loves you, then your only logical response is to love him back. The only thing that would make any sense in this world, in a world where the creator of everything loves you deeply, intimately, personally, the only response is to love him back. And that's why I always say that our purpose here isn't to pursue purity or freedom or never dealing with lust again. No, our purpose is to pursue Jesus because we're aiming towards he who loved us first. That's what the Bible says. We love because he loved us first. The only thing that should be important to you in this world is loving Jesus because he gave everything for you. Your eternity, our life here on this earth is just a blip. It's just a short amount of time. But eternity, well, that's a long time. That's literally forever. And loving God determines that. And we can't love God and love ourselves at the same time, if that makes sense. We can't continue to live in lust and say that we love God. Because the Bible is clear. If you love God, you will obey God's commandments. And God commands you to be pure, to be free, and to not engage in lust. So I really just encourage you today to dwell on your why. I think it's super important to think about these things deeply, to not just like say, yeah, no, my why is because I love Jesus. No, you got to think about that. I don't even know if I've done a great job of explaining it. I've tried my best, but this is something that honestly can only come through spending time in the Word, through spending time in prayer, through spending time with God. It's hard to love someone you don't know. It's hard to love someone that you don't talk to. So if this is truly where you want to be, where you can have a why, a foundation that is worth building on, that is steady, that will weather the storms, which loving God is a foundation that will weather the storms, then you need to spend time wrestling with that. You need to spend time in prayer. You need to spend time journaling. You need to spend time writing this out. I tell every guy that I help with this issue that one of the first things they should do is take out a piece of paper and write why at the top. And then just go down and write a blurb of what is the reason that you are pursuing purity. And flesh this out. Flesh this out how you understand it. Because like I said, the only why that's going to carry you through all of the storms is the love of God. It's because you want to honor and live for him. That's the only why that will have any real effect on this journey. So I encourage you, spend some time tonight and just journal on that and write it out and keep that piece of paper. And when you are struggling, when you're in those depths, when you are in the middle of the storm, take that out and remind yourself, this is why. Yeah, sure, your future, your family, who you want to be, all that's good. But the only thing that will stand the test is a love of God and a pursuit of who he wants you to be. So I encourage you to take some time today with that. And as I always say, get in your word, get in your truth. And I hope to see you here back next time.